Archaeological finds often reveal secrets and make us question what we thought we knew about human history. Most of the time, these ancient finds just don't make sense. This might be because it's so easy to come up with interesting ideas about how and why things exist. We love using our imaginations and wondering about the civilizations that existed before us. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the most mind-blowing archaeological discoveries. First off, at number 10, we have Pompeii. In 79 AD, when Mount Vesuvius erupted, it caused a lot of damage. Ash and pumice fell all over the Roman city of Pompeii and buried it. The eruption destroyed the city and killed all of its people. It's a pretty sad story, but it gave us a huge archaeological site and a lot of Roman treasures. Pompeii was a busy resort city south of ancient Rome. It was on the coast of Italy, under the shadow of an active volcano called Mount Vesuvius. The famous eruption happened in 79 AD when a thick layer of volcanic ash covered the city of Pompeii. One witness wrote that the dust poured over the land like a flood and covered the city in a darkness, like the black of closed and unlit rooms. There were 2,000 deaths, and the city was left empty for almost as many years. When explorers found the site again in 1748, they were surprised to find that Pompeii was mostly still standing under a thick layer of dust and dirt. When buildings, objects, and even bodies are buried under ash, there's no air and no water, so they're well preserved for thousands of years. Because of Pompeii, we know a lot about what everyday life was like in a Roman city. At number 9, we have Atlantis. If all the claims are true, the lost city of Atlantis has been found in the Bahamas, the Greek islands, Cuba, and even Japan. Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, may have talked about a mythical island country called Atlantis. For almost 2,400 years, Western philosophers and historians have been interested in Atlantis. Plato, who lived from about 424 to 328 BC, said it was a powerful and advanced kingdom that sank into the ocean in one night and one day, around 9600 BC. The ancient Greeks couldn't agree on whether Plato's story was based on real events or was just a metaphor. Since the 1800s, people have been trying to connect Plato's Atlantis to real places, most often the Greek island of Santorini, which was destroyed by a volcano around 1600 BC. Archaeologists have argued on whether or not the island really existed in the past, and if it did, where it was most likely to be found among the many sunken ruins found around the world. But even though there isn't any solid proof, Atlantis still fascinates people like few other archaeological mysteries. At number 8, we have the tomb of an ancient Greek warrior. A few years ago, archaeologists found the tomb of a wealthy warrior who had been buried around 1500 BC in an old city on Greece's southwestern coast. He died close to where Nestor's kingdom, Sandy Pylos, would be built 250 years later. Homer wrote about it in the Odyssey. The warrior was buried with 4 gold rings, 50 stone seals, and a bronze sword. Sharon Stalker, a senior research associate at the University of Cincinnati, said in a press release that the warrior was likely an important figure at a time when this part of Greece was being shaped by close contact with Crete, Europe's first advanced civilization. Next up at number 7, we have ancient artwork of the Colombian Amazon. Archaeologists confirmed in December 2020 that they had found a new cave painting in the Amazon rainforest. The drawings were put on a wall canvas that was 8 miles long. The people who lived in the Amazon during the Ice Age drew pictures of mastodons, giant sloths, extinct animals, deer, alligators, bats, snakes, porcupines, monkeys, turtles, and camelids on the cave walls. Some of the paintings in the caves were of cave people hunting. Ochre was used to paint these pictures. Archaeologists say that the art found from the end of the last ice age was made between 11,800 and 12,600 years ago. At number 6, we have Tutankhamun's tomb. Howard Carter and George Herbert found Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. This is how they brought his name to the world's attention. The tomb, which the Egyptians called KV62, was found in the Valley of the Kings mostly intact. King Tutankhamun died around 1324 BC when he was 19 years old. He'd been the pharaoh of Egypt for 10 years. Even though Tutankhamun was known for reversing his father's, Akhenaten's, religious changes, his successors mostly erased his legacy. Before British archaeologist Howard Carter carved into King Tut's tomb in 1922, most people had never heard of him. The tomb's treasure, which was meant to go with the king to the afterlife, taught us a lot about how ancient Egypt and made Tutankhamun the most famous pharaoh in history. Even though the tomb was small and didn't look like it was meant for royalty, it was filled with more than 2,000 valuable antiques. Tutankhamun is still known all over the world, and every day he makes people wonder about ancient Egypt again. It was a great find that helped a lot to spread knowledge about archaeology. At number 5, we have the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone was written by Ptolemaic King Ptolemy V in 196 BC. It had a decree written on it in 3 languages: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and ancient Greek. The Rosetta Stone is a piece of granitoid stone with a decree written on it in 196 BC by a group of Egyptian clergy and Egypt's ruler Ptolemy V about how kind and religious he was. The decree is written in 3 different scripts. hieroglyphics, which were mostly used by priests, Demotic, and ancient Greek. After the 4th century, hieroglyphs were no longer used, and scholars couldn't figure out how they were written. This made the stone an important tool for helping them figure out the long-lost language. It was the first ancient Egyptian text found in modern times that was written in 2 languages. It was founded in 1799. Before we found this, it was impossible to figure out the language, but now that it was in 2 languages, thanks to the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, we can now read almost all ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Moving on at number 4, we have the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army is an amazing group of sculptures made of terracotta that show the army of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. It's an example of a piece of funeral art that was made to protect the emperor in the afterlife. The Terracotta Army is the name for the thousands of life-size clay models of soldiers, horses, and chariots. These were placed around the grand mausoleum of Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of China and founder of the Qin dynasty near Lishan in Shanxi province, central China. The army's job was probably to watch over the tomb or to serve their leader in the next life. The site was found in 1974, and the realistic army figures show how weapons, armor, chariot mechanics, and command structures were used in ancient Chinese warfare. Shi Huangdi wanted to live forever, and in the end, his army of terracotta warriors, horses, and chariots gave him just that, at least in name and deed. Even though the inner tomb hasn't been found yet, the site of the mausoleum is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. At about 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, and 520 horses were in the army in the 3rd century BC. It tells us a lot about the weapons and clothes Chinese soldiers used and how they were outfitted at the time. At number 3, we have Easter Island, Moe. Easter Island is a Chilean Polynesian island in the Pacific Ocean. Archaeologists have found 887 huge statues there. The statues are called Moe and were made by the Rapa Nui people between 1250 and 1500. They are a beautiful tribute to them. The first people to live on the island called it Rapa Nui or Tepito Te Huana. The Dutch, who were the first Europeans to visit, called it Paziland to remember the day they got there. It has a mixed population, but most of them are Polynesians. Almost all of them live in the village of Hangaroa on the island's west coast, where it stays safe. What makes the Moe so interesting is how hard it must have been to move them all over the island. The Rapa Nui people have stories about how they used divine power to make the statues move. At number 2, we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of 800 manuscripts found in 11 caves just 2 kilometers from the Dead Sea, near Khirbet Qumran, an ancient settlement in the West Bank. The Dead Sea Scrolls were written between 150 BC and 70 AD, but scholars still don't agree on where they came from. The most common theory is that they were made by Jews who lived in Qumran until around 70 AD, when Roman troops destroyed the settlement. The texts are some of the oldest known Hebrew Bible books. They were written over a period of 700 years before Jesus Christ was born. They have helped biblical translators learn a lot about what the Bible was like 2,000 years ago and how it was put together by many different people over a long period. Finally, at number 1, we have the Staffordshire Hoard. When an enthusiast metal detector in Lichfield, England, heard his machine beep in a boring field in July 2009 and dug down to find gold, it was clear that this was no ordinary archaeological find. After a decade of preserving and studying the Staffordshire Hoard, archaeologists have finally published their answers to these and other intriguing questions. This is the first major academic study of what became known as the Staffordshire Hoard. The Staffordshire Hoard is the biggest collection of gold and silver objects from the Anglo-Saxon period ever found. In 2009, a metal detectorist in Staffordshire, UK, found the hoard buried under a farmer's field. It was made up of more than 3,500 items. People say that the discovery changed everything about how they thought about Anglo-Saxon England, which makes sense since the hoard contains more than 60% of all the Anglo-Saxon items we've saved. It was more than £3 million. That's all for this video. Which discovery blew your mind? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content in the future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.